Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, jumping straight into our topics, per usual, when the show is on time and not running behind. Speaking of which, let me know if you're on YouTube in the comments if you want to see a follow-up review on the Galaxy Fold 4. The inside screen protector just started bubbling up on me, and I ripped it off today. And man, does the inside screen feel different that way than with the screen protector. Also, it's kind of interesting if you bend the screen protector full, 180 on itself, how it cracks like glass at that point, but it's extremely flexible up until then. But we'll see. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'll just have to do one anyways. But to get started with today's episode, we have video and audio calls are coming to X. This will work on iOS, Android, Mac, and PC. No phone number needed, and X is effectively the global address book. That set of factors is unique, according to Mr. Musk himself, who owns the platform X. Now, there is not a timeline platform as of now for when these features will be set to release, but let's talk about this. So this is something that it's essentially had anyways, ever since they added video live streaming. That said, maybe it's just how Elon's been live streaming, but at least the streams I have seen from him, the quality is quite fucking horrendous, and that is the best way I can put that. And with that, it's begs the question. A couple of those for sure he was on mobile networks, so there's a little bit of that. But X's processing itself does not look super great, but it's something that they can definitely work on and improve, and that's something that's just going to come with time as this platform is growing into the platform that Elon wants it to. And this is one of those steps. With that, so they've had video on the platform, and basically with Twitter Spaces or X Spaces or whatever they're called now, the live podcasty thing you can do on Twitter, you've basically always had audio calls. Essentially, they're just adding video, which is interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see if these calls, effectively, if you have to be friends with people, what the settings look like behind the scenes. Because I'm guessing someone like Elon does not want everybody on X trying to call him and acting as the global address book. I see why this is a good idea, but this is just more moving towards his WeChat or whatever that app is called in China, where it basically is your end-all be-all for everything. This is their step towards that. What is interesting for sure, though, is no phone number will be needed. So they're providing all of that, which means if this is entirely true, there's got to be some way that X is actually making money now. Now, obviously, we won't necessarily hear about that now that it's a private entity, but there's got to be some way that they're able to bring these features forward, especially with these creator payouts, everything else that's going on there. Clearly, they're at a point where product development is something they can actually pour money into if they want to bring stuff like this. We'll have to wait and see more on what happens here. And I mean, everyone's kind of, not everyone, but a lot of people are starting to use X for media creation. I mean, you have Tucker Carlson's an example. Trump was on that show. Who else was done stuff on? A bunch of other people have joined on there too. I don't know why I can only think of those right now, but people are testing out the platform at a minimum. And even some of the scientific accounts that I follow that just post cool science facts every day, it's pretty interesting the amount of money they're able to make through Twitter already, just with Twitter ads and stuff like that, just paying them out with their subscriptions or whatever else. So clearly the platform is going to be a viable option soon for getting paid out, making money and stuff like that. We're just going to have to keep waiting and see where it ends up going here with all of that. Next up, we have Google Play Points. Now, if you don't know what this is, if you buy stuff on the Google Play Store, Google will give you points. It's basically just a reward for buying things. And usually you can put those towards spend $5, get $3 off on a certain game and stuff like that. Sometimes Google Play Movies, you can get a $3 coupon with, X amount of points and so on and so forth. Now, the cool thing here is they are adding rewards for Walmart Plus, Instacart, and Discord. So Discord, I would guess, would be towards Nitro or something similar. But Instacart and Walmart Plus are actually the ones that interest me the most here, because those will be the first major ones that it makes it useful outside of the Google Play Store, if that makes sense. Now, they won't be coming immediately, but platform members, so people who have over 3,000 points or more, The perk 6 months will include a Walmart Plus membership or 6 months of DoorDash or Discord Nitro. So this is interesting to see here. Now, members won't need to cash in their points to gain these perks. That's the other thing here. Normally, you would trade your points towards the coupon, so forth and so on. Here, you won't actually have to. Now, in addition, Google Play points will now be redeemed with 10 game developers for in-game item titles, including Lords Mobile, PUBG Mobile, Matchmasters, Evany, Clash of Clans. Clash of Clans has been doing it for a long time. Points can also be used to buy boosters in the games that give you 8x points in their games for 7 days, etc., etc. But like I said, the fact that this can actually go towards some, like, I would say major name brands, especially with, Walmart Plus, obviously, but DoorDash is an interesting one. Discord is an interesting one for gamers. I feel like that's one that is actually going to get used quite heavily. And it's interesting because the Apple Store does not have something comparable to this. There's no Apple points or anything like that. So this is really just another way that if you own an Android phone and happen to make purchases on the Play Store and get points, you can get rewarded with actually they're adding cool stuff now. It's not just other games or more things for the game that you're already buying things in. They can go towards things you might use in everyday life that's not just games. So next up with Google, they set their date for the Pixel 8 launch event. A day after Apple sends out their invites for the iPhone 15 event, Google locks down the date for the new Pixel 8, which will be October 4th. Now, what will happen at this? We'll meet the newest Pixel devices. Just over a month from now, we'll probably see, the 8, the 8 Plus, or whatever the hell they're going to call. And a new Pixel Watch is assured. Otherwise, the Pixel Buds Series A and Pixel Buds Pro are potential targets for an update, but the Pixel Fold and Pixel Tablet just started shipping, so obviously we won't be seeing any updates towards those. The invitation didn't mention Google's other hardware brands like Nest or Fitbit, but those are also possibilities. Every once in a while they throw those things in there, but that said, they're not doing it yet. So Google eventually posted this advertisement for the event featuring the Pixel and an iPhone saying, enjoying a spa day, with the most relevant part of the link to the Google Store for people to sign up for updates once they are available. Now, as you can see here, it looks like we're probably not getting that big of a facelift here to the Pixel 8 over the 7. But, again, with that, there must be something with the cameras if that's where they're putting the cucumbers. Also, cameras, eyes, kind of go together. But whatever Google has announced, it'll be coming. I wouldn't expect to see a big uplift between this. The even numbers on Pixel series just tend to be the marginal step-ups, maybe some software stuff, but nothing too outlandish when it comes to hardware. And then moving on, Apple's event, which they're calling Wonderlust. Now, if you didn't know, the Apple logo is double cheeked up on the Tuesday of announcement here, but they have announced their next product event, which will take place on September 12th. Now, obviously, we're going to see the iPhone 15, iPhone 15 Plus, iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 15 Pro Max is the 4 new iPhones we're expecting to see. The most interesting part of this year's thing will be potential for USB-C charging. Will round out the list of changes. Now, I am wondering, to be completely honest, if Apple is willing enough, if they were that set on Lightning on the iPhone for so long, I really, really wonder if they're going to just drop the charger entirely. Now, the rumors suggest they're going to put a Type-C in there because that's what EU kind of forced them into, and so they were going to just do it. But I got to be honest, I kind of feel like they're really going to push for just wireless, because with AirDrop, you don't really need data transfer, would be Apple's argument. With how fast their charging bricks used to come out of the box anyways, the iPhone charges at about the same speed wirelessly or not with that technology, especially if Apple had some breakthrough that matches some of the Android phones we've seen. Potentially, they could go to wireless charging and end up having a faster charge speed. Again, all things that I think they would do just to, be a snub here, but USB-C is what we've seen rumored to actually be coming, not full wireless. Now, the feature set from the iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Max is going to be pretty much just carried over. That includes the A16 Bionic chip, the dynamic island, and 48 megapixel camera, with a fresh set of new colors and USB charging. Now, again, we don't expect to see that many changes on the lower end products because it seems like Apple feels like they've kind of reached the limit on, does it really need a new chip, or is last year's actually doesn't make the cut. Now, the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, those are where we're going to see more changes to the A17 Bionic chip, which will be the first 3 nanometer processor in a smartphone. Again, all rumors here, but we're going to see. Action button, a programmable button that replaces the mute switch. That I'm kind of iffy on. Apple seems to like their mute switch, and changing that would be an interesting step for them. Now, titanium frame, the lighter material replaced stainless steel. Design refresh, basically some thinner bezeled and slightly curved edges. And USB-C charging point will replace the lightning port, battery upgrades, periscope, zoom lens to the Pro Max only. New gray and dark blue covers, replacing gold and purple. Speaking is hard. Higher tier storage and a higher starting price of $10.99 and $11.99 are all of the rumors of what people think is going to happen here. What the heck is this? Sorry for oh, that was super weird. But okay, sorry. If you're listening, a picture wasn't loaded and it was letting me like draw in the blocks to uncover the image, I guess. But with that, you can see kind of some mock-up of the colors here, but I don't expect to see, like I said, that many changes between the lower end models. Pro models, sure, but I think this will be a pretty tame year in terms of Apple, other than Type-C, or possibly, and my dream would Apple would snub out everybody and just go full wireless. As much as I like my wired charger, and I hope it doesn't go away soon, because if Apple does that, it will. I could really just see him doing that. I really, really could. Now, alongside this, we also expect to see the Apple Watch Series 9 and the Ultra 2. It'll be interesting to see what the Apple Watch Ultra 2 really can bring to the table to step up over the Ultra 1. Whether it's just software improvements or some hardware improvements, it'll just be interesting to see what they're capable of doing now with that same product on its own. Next up here, we go back to Tesla for a quick moment for one of my favorite things they've ever done, which is they wrapped the Cybertruck like a Toyota Tundra in, as this article calls, troll wrap. Now, the interesting thing that made me choose this article over the other ones that were just showing the pictures, basically, is they think that this is to hide the panel gaps. Now, if you don't know, well, Teslas are built well. The quality and panel gaps is a separate topic and always has been, especially on the first 100,000 off a lot of them off the line. They have to make a lot before it gets better. And with that, Elon recently test drove one of these, and reportedly an internal memo he sent was saying if Legos can fit together to 10 microns or whatever it was, I don't remember the exact number, but basically if Legos can fit together so well, the Cybertruck needs to, and we need to expect that from our suppliers and everyone else, because if Lego can, we can. Even though this is an entirely different product because it's metal and way bigger and way more parts. But with that said, on a truck that doesn't have curves and is all sharp edges, panel gaps that start small at one end end up being huge on the other end, and it will be extremely noticeable on a vehicle like this. And to prove that out here, they did a little bit of just kind of showing you here. And you can see, actually, if you zoom in, it's a little hard to tell if it's stickers or not, but it does look like there's some weird gaps here. Just look at the edge of the truck here where the back comes down and the tailgate meets. There's a pretty big gap in between, like the edge of the tailgate and the truck itself. Just one example there. And then you can see here on the hood especially. Now, if that's not just, this could just be bad rap. These pictures are horrible to make claims like this from. But if that gap is really as big as it looks between the hood and the side of the truck as well, that is actually a pretty bad panel gap, in my opinion. Now, I would guess if they're this close to shipping and they've announced that it's going to happen at the end of this quarter, basically end of September most likely, that this will be mostly ironed out by then, or it at least doesn't affect the functionality of the vehicle. That said, you're starting at, $40K truck might not look like it started at $40K. Interesting to see, though, because this is going to be one of the few vehicles out there that is going to be hard to manufacture like this and keep the tolerances so perfect from the get-go. Because especially with how the event went, if if you just think about how the event went when they smashed the glass, if there's tolerance issues on stuff like that, that possibility becomes even greater. And again, it's a little hard to tell here because I'm just going to show you one more on this picture here, but look at just how the wrap lines up here. It doesn't look great, but that might just be how the wrap looks. Again, that could just be how the wrap looks a little bit. But at the end of the day, this hood one doesn't look like it's all just the wrap, and that is, I mean, that's pretty not great. Like if I spent 70K on my Cybertruck or more, and that's how it showed up, I'd be a little, I might not, I might not be happy about that. Now, again, here, this is a funny way to just poke fun at other brands that are building just these standard trucks. And oddly, it looks like kind of decent on them. There was an F-150 version too, but like it doesn't look that horrible of like a wrap, which is kind of wild to see. Like it actually makes the truck look kind of cool here. But again, I do think there's probably a little bit of hiding some gaps, but you know, it's Tesla. The other thing here is the mega wiper on the Cybertruck in action here. This brings up some questions in case you're curious. Question one being, if it's raining really hard, that thing's going to need a lot of torque. Not that Tesla can't do torque, because their motors clearly can, but a big wiper like that, that's a lot of torque and heaviness on the top end. I mean, that might be an expensive wiper to replace when it's going to need to be. But with that, it's fascinating here to see a company whose tolerances have never been that great on other vehicles that seemingly should actually be easier to hide those same tolerance problems, are trying to absolutely perfect it on one of their hardest to manufacture vehicles. As of right now, it looks like they're ever going to have, in complete honesty. But we'll have to wait and see what really ends up happening here with all of this when they start shipping and when people get them in their hands and go, I'm going to the Tesla store today to get a new hood or whatever they got to do. Now, Rivian has also come out with a new motor. Their new dual motor R1T will get up to 410 miles of range. Now, we are not quite matching the Cybertruck's 500 yet, but 410 for someone who's not Tesla sounds actually pretty damn good. And I gotta admit, especially from Rivian, it's a pretty great thing here. Now, it'll have the best range in their lineup, Rivian said in a tweet, with an EPA estimate of 410, coupled with the company's max battery pack and 352 miles with the large battery pack that's all predicted with 21-inch wheels, which surely helped propel the R1T to its full range because tire size helps a lot. That said, again, it's cool to see Rivian actually catching up in range here. As you can see, that's going to be pretty good. Keep an eye out for the R1S range figures soon, so those must also be in testing. And again, I've started to see a little more. I used to see a lot of the R1Ss, not a lot, but like in terms of seeing Rivians, seeing a lot of R1Ss. And I've started to actually see the R1T around quite a bit. And I gotta admit, it looks pretty nice actually in the wild. Wasn't sure. I kind of always liked how like the lights looked on the truck, but I wasn't sure about like the front look or anything like that from a distance, just with how like aerodynamic the curves were and like angles were, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't really sure if I'd be fully into it, but it turns out it looks pretty good in person. I definitely looks better than it does on a screen. Now, with that, others have since joined the fray, including the Ford F-150 or Lightning, but Rivian has been using that time to improve its production cadence. Most recently, the company announced it had tripled its production and deliveries for the second quarter of the year. If you didn't know, they were extremely struggling with getting cars produced and shipped out. Glad they're catching up on that, though. But while 350 to 4 miles of range this says plenty for an electric vehicle, I would argue not, because you are at the end of the day shipping a truck or a vehicle capable of towing, where now that range has been halved versus a regular truck that wouldn't be, halved would be kind of wild. You'd still probably get like 3/4 of your range or something. But that hasn't stopped other companies from jamming every last morsel of lithium into their upcoming battery-powered trucks to achieve the inane status of longest ranger on the road. Ram, for example, is boasting 500 miles on its long-range versions of its Ram 1500 Rev, which hasn't had any updates and specs for more than a minute. But the Cybertruck, the tri-modal variant at least, was projected to have 500 miles of range at promised at least, and we'll have to see where that really goes. But I'm excited to see Rivian having a fairly competitive range. I mean, it's not the best, but like it's better than nothing. And lastly, here, if you didn't know, your Tesla can self-drive. We have a lot of Tesla stuff in here today because that was just what my feed was filled with, and a lot of it was actually interesting to me at least. But Tesla's hidden Elon mode has the NHTSA regulators extremely concerned. So if you didn't know, it's been rumored for a long time, and finally some hacker was able to test it, where Teslas have something called Elon mode, where instead of the car telling you to hold onto the steering wheel and nagging you and wanting you to do certain things, you can turn on Elon mode, which will just basically let it, do everything, and you don't have to hold on to the wheel, which is kind of wild. So with that, obviously the NHTSA doesn't want that on the roads for free, doesn't want that to be on the roads at all. And of course, Elon wants his Elon mode. So a little bit of that. Now, this was always rumored, never really proven to be true, but then this hacker discovered and then drove 600 miles with it enabled, where the car just drove. You didn't have to hold it. You didn't have to be trickery and put weights on there and certain things, whatever. No, they just figured out how to do it. Now, they posted this letter and special order on August 29th. So that said, we might actually get to hear some information, as this is something that will be public, but it is concerned with a feature introduced to consumer vehicles, and now that the existence of a feature is known to the public, more drivers may attempt to activate it. So the biggest concern here is not that Tesla was enabling Elon mode, but that people have now figured out how to enable it, and that will incline more people too, which, to be fair to the government, like, that is a problem. Like, they should not be allowed to do that. But if you're Tesla, in complete honesty, you probably want a couple people to turn it on, and then you get free, like, look at the car could do that, or like the car learned all this while it was in Elon mode because people are driving it that way and no one's taking it over, and you tell people that they're fully liable in self-driving, so it's not on you at the end of the day. But I would think greaterly at the end of the day, Tesla does not actually want to let them have access to this either. But it is a concern that people are able to turn it on remotely, and that it's not something that's taken out of the software before it's loaded onto vehicles, and it's still accessible to people if they know how to use a computer really well. So the resulting relaxation of the controls, designed to ensure that the driver remains engaged for the dynamic driving task, could lead to greater driver inattention and failure of the driver to properly supervise autopilot. Again, some of this comes down to Tesla's arguably shitty marketing with calling it autopilot, because at the moment it is not, and it also requires you to be attentive. But Tesla does not want you to think that, because it's called autopilot. And so that's a little bit on them and a little bit on everyone else for thinking that autopilot literally means autopilot. Now, the latest probe comes in the midst of a series of ongoing investigations into Tesla and its FSD software. They have been conducting already a pretty lengthy investigation into the safety of FSD for years, and the agency began a separate preliminary investigation into the loss of steering issues with the company's Model 3 and Model Ys in August. If you didn't know, people's steering wheels were popping off for fun, because if the car has autopilot, obviously you want the steering wheel removable, especially at times that you're not aware it's going to happen. So autopilot, enhanced autopilot, and full self-driving capabilities are intended for use with a fully attentive driver who has their hands on the wheel and is prepared to take over fully at any moment. Now, Tesla's website reads, while these features are designed to become more capable over time, they currently features and do not make the vehicle autonomous. So while they do have the disclaimer, if you've ever seen Elon's Twitter, he will pretty much only brag when it does awesome things, and so will Tesla. And that's fair. That is their choice, and it does cool shit. Part of the thing that concerns me, though, with Tesla's approach to this is because they just send out updates, and and people think it's autopilot. So it needs my attention, but like it doesn't really, because people are lazy and stupid. This is going to lead to accidents, or if this investigation comes forward and say 3 years, but Tesla actually has gotten it to a point where on most roads it can full self-drive, but then this investigation ends, now all of a sudden you're in a pickle because the law will always be behind, and when the law gets behind and bad things happen, they overcorrect. And when they overcorrect is when we hinder innovation, and that'll really, really suck to see, especially because in reality, the way Tesla is going through programming their autopilot with having the cars drive and map the roads themselves and updating the entire fleet versus driving the roads and mapping them and then updating the map of the car to allow it there. Tesla's version is way more dynamic, and at the end of the day will be way more diverse in how it handles situations than any other vehicle. That if things like this keep happening with Tesla, it actually could become, kind of a large problem here for them to deal with at the end of the day. But for now, it's not. And for now, I guess that's how Tesla wants to run things. And the NHTSA seems like they are happy doing investigations for now. So with that, thank you guys for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope it was at least 50% entertaining. And with that, hopefully for the next one, I'm actually going to have some better mic set up here. I'm going to get a way smaller holder shock mount thing here because I don't know why the default one felt like it needed to be built from the 60s, but that's what they did. And I'm getting a different pop filter, so I don't have this big thing in the way either. Not that I don't like to pull the mic in front of me like I should be for the podcast because it feels like it's so big and bulky and is blocking everything. And then if I were to lean forward to talk into the mic, all of a sudden we're in a really weird spot because like all of me is covered. But with all these smaller ones, I might actually be able to, pull this in because this thing will be about the same size as the top of the mic, and this thing will be like, a quarter of the size maybe. And so that should be a substantial improvement to the podcast. But like I said, I'll catch you guys in the next one, and I hope you enjoyed. See ya.